For a free catalog listing our selection of audio and video cassettes, books, and religious articles, or for information about our Catholic Video Club, call 1-800-221-1564 and ask for Jack Hoffbauer. Or write Keep the Faith, Post Office Box 8621, 810 Belmont Avenue, North Haledon, New Jersey, 07508. Why not start your own TV apostolate? This program can be made available to you for broadcast on your local cable TV outlet. Call your city hall or town hall for information on the outlets servicing your community. For a small cost, Keep the Faith will ship you this program. Contact Jim Donovan at 201-423-5395 for details. That's Jim Donovan at 201-423-5395 for details. This program is presented by Keep the Faith, a nonprofit Catholic lay apostolate devoted to spreading the teachings of Holy Mother Church.
Go tell the world about Mary. Go tell the world about her joy. God the Creator was her little boy, and she'd lull him to sleep with a song for him deep in her heart. Go tell the world about Mary. Go tell the world about her pain. God the Redeemer was her young son slain, and his love she would keep and would ponder it deep in her heart.
Today I have the great honor and privilege to introduce to you Mr. Frank Duff and to interview him for our program. Mr. Duff is one of the original members of the Legion of Mary, a worldwide organization numbering 1.5 million members active and over 10 million auxiliary members. Mr. Duff, where were you born?
I was born in this very city, at a spot 1 mile north of where we are sitting.
I see. And what year was that?
1889.
So that would make you now 90 years of age.
That is true, according to the laws of arithmetic.
Ah, that's right. Well, where was your mother and father born?
They were born at a spot 27.5 miles from here, this town of Trim, County Meath, a place which is quite well known in the history of ancient Ireland.
I see. And what type of work were they involved in?
My father was a civil servant, and my mother was likewise a civil servant. My mother had the distinction of passing the first examination in the old British and Irish civil servants open to women.
I see.
And she was appointed to London, where she was for a few years, And then they extended the system to Ireland and she came back. So it was in the family to be a civil servant because that's what I became in due course.
I see. How many brothers and sisters had you?
There were 7 children born in all. 2 of them died young, both girls. That left 5. 3 girls, my brother and myself.
Are any of your brothers and sisters living today?
No. I am the sole survivor. And it is one of the anguishes of life that when I want to go back into things in the past that I would very much wish to know, I have not a soul to turn to.
I see. What about your schooling background? Where did you have your schooling here in Ireland?
Well, after being in these, what they call dame schools, up to a certain point, I was 2 years in Belvedere College, run by the Jesuits, and then on a change of residence, I was sent to Blackrock where I completed my education such as it was.
I see. Then you, as you said, you became a civil servant.
I became a civil servant, yes.
Then in the year 1921, the Legion was founded and you continued as a civil servant until what year?
1933. And at that stage, I got an opportunity of leaving the civil service. I had for quite a time been suffering from the realization that the 2 things were incompatible. And I used to even think that sometimes that I was dying under the strain.
I see.
And in any case, the end of that was that I quit. A step I was never even in the remotest degree sorry for.
And so after that time, you gave and have given through the years your full time to the Legion of Mary.
That is so.
I'd like to get into asking you something about the organization that we are all members of. The Legion now is nearly 60 years old and is in every country in the world.
Nearly every.
Nearly every country in the world.
Some of the what are called the Iron Curtain countries have not yet come in.
I see.
But we hope that that defect will be very soon remedied.
Good, good.
Yeah.
Is it the same Legion that you envisioned in the beginning? Is it really all you hoped it would be?
Well, that's what I would call a tough question, because it presumes some sort of foresight in me, which I do not possess. You might as well put that to a mother with her young child, or about her young child, that had she envisioned that she would become something very big.
Yes.
It is true that quickly enough I saw that we were dealing with something completely out of the ordinary. Some of you were speaking to me the other day on that subject, and you suggested that that occurred at the second meeting of the Legion. That was not so, but it occurred within 3 months of its birth, that I did tell them that they were destined to cover the whole world. Now, you ask me, what was I going by? I was going by the terribly evident spirit of what I saw in operation. I was accustomed to good organization. I was in a number of things around me which I thought were awfully good. And, but I said to myself, this is a remarkable, ordinary, simple people with whom you would not associate the idea of great accomplishment, showing a degree of spirit which seemed to be limitless. And building on that idea, I ventured down the prognostication to them that they would encompass the whole world. They thought it so funny that they must have consumed the best part of 5 minutes in uproarious laughter. Such was the respect with which my prophecy was treated.
They couldn't see it themselves, no. They couldn't see that there was going to be.
Oh, they took it all for granted. They had nothing to compare it with.
I see, I see.
See, to them it was just ordinary routine.
Or maybe we might think of the caliber of membership that we have today. In the beginning, you had the members going to Bentley Place, and it was said that some of the members went in with the fear of losing their lives. Do you think we have that same type, same caliber of membership today?
No, of course. There's no question whatever about it. From that point of view, really standards are higher. Because while those members took their assignments as a matter of course, and would go to a place like Bentley Place or other difficult situations, just as a matter of common duty. Well, I would say the same situation exists today.
You would?
We find, for instance, in any of the peregrinatio ventures, that they go off to countries which, at first sight, constitute perilous adventures, and that they do it as a matter of course. Now, that could have meant very little in a small body like the original body, but it becomes most impressive when you see it on a large scale, as today.
I see, I see. And you are quite impressed with the caliber of membership today.
The caliber of the membership today is simply without any limit. Now, I just declare that there is an artificial limit imposed, but usually it is from outside. That is, the members, you'll get members to do anything which is proposed to them, but then, for various reasons, that very lofty proposition is not made to them frequently.
Right.
But there was a case recently where a group of members who wanted to undertake a specially difficult peregrinatio came to us and mentioned a certain venture. And it terrified us. But that proceeded from rank and file members who knew what they knew about it, knew its difficulties, and yet were prepared to go. I'd like to be able to give you a fuller account of the episode because it is so remarkable, but perhaps it would be better not to give any publicity to it. But I'd say that it was something which very probably would have ended in their death. Very probably. And it was from ourselves that the obstacle proceeded in the end. We wouldn't let them.
I see. Oh, you prevented it. You know, we go to places and we hear definitions of a true legionary given by many people. I'd like to hear from you. What is your definition of a true legionary?
One who understands the rules and obeys them.
Well, that certainly is a simple definition, all right.
I don't know whether that satisfies you.
That will satisfy me, coming from you. But you could elaborate on that a bit and tell us a little bit more.
Well, perhaps I might add another requirement. We would have to have the assurance that that person was going to last in the Legion. So you'd have to supply the additional proviso that such a person had been a certain amount of time in the Legion. But that would be the only guarantee, really, in the end, that a person was a good legionary, that they had lasted the course.
Good, good, I see. All right, well, maybe we might ask you now a question that may be difficult. Has the Legion ever disappointed you?
You described that as a difficult question. And if ever truth were spoken, that is truth. Because that is what you used to call out in America $64 question. With inflation, of course, nowadays that have to be put much higher.
Right.
But if you mean that, was I always in agreement with the attitude of the Legion at all moments of its career, I would have to say that I was not. There were a number of things that happened and will, of course, keep on happening that I was terrified at, and where I thought that a wrong decision had been made. But then time went on, and I came to the conclusion, well, perhaps that the Legion was right and I was wrong. And that's where we'll have to leave it.
All right. All right. Now, you are in your 90th year. And this is an age in which bishops are retiring at the age 75. And so much is being said about renewal and all types of things like that. How do you justify your continued active participation in the Legion?
I don't fully follow that question. How much to get out of it? Am I to forsake my duties so solemnly imposed on me by the Church of leaving aside all active Christianity? What shape is my deviant to take? Is this to be that of a complete retirement without membership of any kind?
Well,
obviously, that's not meant.
No, that's not.
What is meant, I presume, is that at the age of 75, it is deemed that a person has lost their finer edge.
But that's not true in your case.
Well, that might be, you see. It's just, I'm assuming that it is. And that it is better that they should yield their responsibilities to younger hands. But what responsibilities am I to pass over? I'm not in the president of the Legion. See, that question seems to assume that I am. and that I should have resigned from that office when I was 75 years of age. But I'm not the president. I'm not a senior officer at all. So what I'm to resign from is not clear.
Yes, I think primarily we were just thinking in terms of the modern thinking of the bishops being asked to step down at 75, and we want to show the world that you're past 75, but you have no need of retirement because of the wisdom and the great strength that you give to us in the organization.
Well, if I had any wisdom or strength, it is available to the Legion in present conditions. I have not the supreme authority in the Legion, and the Legion has always, from the first minute, faced up to that 75-year-old situation, because unlike the society to which it patterned itself on to some extent, it put restrictions on the term of office of those in authority. Every 3 years, an officer, including the president of the Concilium, has to have his mandate renewed. And after a second term of 3 years, making 6, he has to vacate the office. Not necessarily permanently, because after a further 3 years, he could be voted back into it. And that revoting presumes that he retains his powers.
I understand. Now, you are...
And I'm out of the presidency now for quite a considerable number of years. I availed of the first opportunity which was given to me to refuse a renewal of my term of office and to get into a lesser atmosphere.
You serve as a counselor now. Could you tell us what that is and how you participate?
Well, it's in order to leave plenty of scope for the rising generation in our ranks. We set up this category known as the counsellor to absorb somebody who has been an excellent officer, going from one office to the other and perhaps sometimes back to higher office, to take them out of all that and put them into the elder statesman category and leave that job for the talent which is rising up. You see, that's a real problem everywhere. If you let people go back indefinitely into higher office after, say, a period of being out of it, well, then you'll have, out of loyalty and other considerations, you'll have the original people maintained too long. And you'll have that 75-year-old situation present itself. Now, the councillorship is the safeguard against that. After a considerable period of office, we say it is time that we solve this situation, not by getting rid of the person, because the councillorship preserves their experience, but by leaving the office which they had heard, the major office, open to a newcomer. And see, there is, at any moment in the Legion, there is somebody before us who is obviously a case for giving high office to. Always at any moment there is that problem.
I see. And so the councils are there to give their experience of the years.
While retaining the experience of the elder statesman, you give the opportunity to the newcomer. That's awfully important. In Austria, for instance, at the last election for president, a man of 21 years of age was elected to the presidency of the Legion of Austria.
21.
And that's writing to us at the time about this. He said, I think that makes me the youngest president of a synod in the world, and that we had to admit.
21 years old. Well, that's just marvelous. We look at this organization of ours, and we wonder what provisions have you made to protect your ideals after you have gone? And do you see the Legion continuing as it is at present when you have left us?
Of course, that's purely position that demands an amount of foresight and an amount of control over the future that doesn't exist to any case. To answer that question, I would have to descend to the realm of faith and devotion. And I would have to say to myself, well, the Legion, from its first moment, was in the hands of the Blessed Virgin. My departure from the scene is not going to remove it from her hands. We must have sufficient belief to think that her dispensation will continue on undiminished, perhaps greater, inasmuch as the Legion becomes more and more a vital element to the Church. See, one of your questions asked what had I envisioned about the future of the Legion 50 or 60 years ago. Well, I, of course, had not envisioned anything like what has happened. That reply of mine about the Legion covering the world, only saw it as covering the world in its present type of action. But my mind had not expanded to the extent of thinking that it was going to become the right arm of the Catholic Church. It's an absolute essential. And that fact, you see, has at last been completely and unreservedly recognized. Our recent visit to Rome was utter evidence of that. Everybody we dealt with in Rome, including the great man at the top, was satisfied about that and was trying to put his realization into a distinguished welcome. They all realized it. There's nothing else. What else is there? And that, to that extent, you see, it's tragic to see so many of the important people of the world on whom that fact has not yet dawned.
That's true, that's true.
And in that, to that extent, you know, they are actually acting in a manner contrary to the true welfare of the Catholic Church. That's the way I'd have to look on your
question.
On your question.
I see.
But as I see things, The Legion has only now arrived at adult stature. Only now. It's only up to the present it has, in a sense, been in the cradle. Now it is a grown and armed soldier, ready for the terrible fray that the next century is going to place us in the midst of.
And so you see it continuing in that state and even bigger and better things.
Well, that is my conception. Other people wouldn't agree with it. Now, it is said that at the council, many of the important figures, the bishops, wanted to put the Legion into one of the degrees by name.
Yes.
And that was seriously considered and put aside. And for sufficient reasons. Because first case, it would stir up a certain amount of jealousy against the Legion, which would not be a help to it. And in the second case, supposing in the designs of Providence, the Legion dies out in 10 years, and something else created by Providence and better, and the Legion rises up. Well, that organisation is not named in any decree, and there's the dead organisation enshrined in the decree.
Yeah, I can see that.
You can understand the sense, the good sense of all that.
Yes. Regarding the works of the Legion of Mary and evaluation of lay societies today, other lay societies today, is usually based on the work they do in the church. And yet the handbook tells us that the work is secondary. Can you justify this, that the work is secondary?
Yes, and of course that is the most important truth about the Legion, because there is something which ascends far away, far higher than the nature of the work, and that is the spirit, the faith of the Legion. What's the good in concentrating upon very high-class work if you don't possess the ingredients for setting about it? And of course that's the fault of the world today. Tremendous programs, and when the people proceed to analyze what they've got to accomplish those programs with, they find they have nothing. You fill pages with ambitious schemes, and you don't advance an inch on the way of realizing them. That's the fault of this present moment. It's all a paper scheme. They're all designing paper schemes. They're writing out programs which presume a real army to carry through, and they have no army. The thing is fantastic, and it represents a great waste of paper, to put it at no higher valuation than that. You see, the first thing is, before you think of advancing towards the simplest work, have you got the human material to undertake it? Secondly, has that human material itself got the capacity to undertake it and to persevere?
Yeah, I always thought when you were talking about the work being secondary that it was the development of the spiritual side of the individual that was primary. Is that the thought that you have in mind?
That must be the first thing, the development of the instrument. If you want to saw wood, you have to have a saw. And that saw has to possess a certain quality. And that's the simplicity of the system. And it's when I talk about the spirit of the Legion and its faith, you see, you must then begin become precise to another degree, and you must say to yourself, well, now, what do you mean by spirit? What do you mean by faith? Is a simple, undeveloped faith that God is mighty and is perhaps on your side, and leave things at that? Well, of course, no. You have to have the entry of what we might call theological considerations into the position. It must be a complete faith. It must be a Catholic faith. It must believe in the doctrines of the Catholic Church. It must believe in something that is far too much neglected, and that's the Blessed Virgin. See, we would, if anybody now wanted to, supposing now somebody said to us who was able to do it, well, now we'll put you in every parish in the whole world in great size, with every opportunity you take the work in the way you wish, but one condition is necessary. And we say, well, what's that? That you cut out all this nonsense about the Blessed Virgin. Take a more sensible view of her. In other words, cut her out. Well, of course, we don't hesitate for the proverbial second. Our answer has to be a total refusal.
Just how do you see the Legion tomorrow, and do you think that this organization of ours will continue with the vitality that it has now in the 21st century?
That, again, is in the category of the $64 question. To talk about the future is really a very dubious proposition, because at best it can only be a guesswork. I would have to say that if the Legion is allowed to retain its present complexion, that it will not only keep its vitality and its degree of success, but will far improve on them. But always in the background is the lesson of history, which I happen to know a little about. And to read history makes you uncertain about everything, however solid it may seem to you to be. You look back over history and you see the uprise of tremendous organizations, tremendous things. They seem to be so good. And you say to yourself, oh, they possess the secret of the future. And after a period, they are gone. How that has been particularly the case among the lay societies which have arisen. And a very wise individual, the late Dr. Downey, Archbishop of Liverpool, after consideration of that whole question, said that every lay society should be suppressed on its 50th birthday. That, like humanity, it had grown old and was due for retirement. He didn't even give it to the 75 mark that we have been discussing. Well, see, while that is, we'd say, going too far, the fact is that extraordinary things happen. It's almost like as if the Lord himself gives a certain innings to an institution, and then he wipes it away, no matter how good it had been. You know, there's a line in Tennyson, and it speaks of God renewing himself in many ways, lest one good custom should pervert the world. In other words, that's his way of doing things. He creates, and perhaps he keeps a whole lot of that permanently in existence through the radiation of its spirit. That is, that while it lived, it shaped minds. And that would mean that it was a permanent thing in the church. But as a visible entity, it has ceased to exist. Well, when we look out at things over the world, we see very troublesome situations. We've always a couple on hand, people who are passionately anxious to take possession of the region in their own place and change it according to their own notions. That's there in too many places. And if by any sort of chance that mentality prevails and the region is changed, well, I would there be inclined then to resort rather confidently to what you have been naming as prophecy. And I would be inclined to say that the next thing is the region will be dead, which would be a grievous and appalling thought to think. But then you have to think again and say to yourself, well, the Lord is in his heaven. He has allowed that to happen, and, well, he will provide. But when you think of what has been permitted to happen in the past, look at the French Revolution, look at the Protestant Reformation. There now, the Protestant Reformation swept half of Catholicism out. And as Lord Macaulay says in one of his writings, none of that ever came back. He says that since that time, great communities have left the church and come back. But he had nobody left, no community which left at the time of the Reformation ever came back. You see, these are extraordinary thoughts. You take, say, whole nations living there now in a benighted form of faith, and we're not able to bring them back. They die, pass on. See, there are sobering reflections of this kind whenever you cast your mind into the future. Don't know. The Legion could be terribly easily destroyed. Pervert its particular outlook in regard to our Blessed Lady. Just a little twist. Just a little twist. The whole thing's gone. Like the proverbial screw, which comes out and brings a vast mechanism into inaction.
I see. Maybe perhaps I've been asking too much about prophesying. Maybe I should ask you to tell us, if you think back over the almost 60 years of the Legion, things that have happened, outstanding accomplishments of the Legion over the past 50 years, 50, 60 years.
They are so numerous that it is hard enough to rattle them off. I still am inclined to think that the greatest one was enacted in the Philippines, which everybody considered to have drifted too far for anything in a way of a rapid restoration. The celebrated Dr. E.J. McCarthy, who was sent there by the Columban Fathers to investigate the position, reported that evangelization would have to begin at the very beginning all over again, that the islands were too far gone for a rapid restoration. Well, there's a great mind. Well, he wouldn't attempt the start of the Legion for that reason, even though we argued with him. He said he didn't see even one potential legionary in the San Tomas University, of which he was the spiritual director. But Spanish priest Father Gracia Vincentian came in. Within a fortnight, he had 2 presidia on foot. Then in the first year there were 14. During the Japanese occupation which followed, that rose to 100. Now there are possibly 10,000 presidia. And it's a Catholic land again. The country that had no priests was able to open a foreign missionary college. There's an abundance of vocations for men and women. And now they say to us with confidence which is justified by their record that they are preparing a peaceful army of apostles to penetrate Asia. Now, I'd be inclined to think that's the biggest achievement. But then you get the same thing in very many places. We're looking at a rather marvelous happening in Iceland at the moment, where the most impossible enterprise in the world was attempted. And just at this moment, apart from what has happened up to the present, there are 15 persons under instruction. And much more than that, it is evident that the whole atmosphere of that island has become permeated with Catholicism. Now, what was accomplished in China was very portentous. You probably have or will be interviewing Father McGrath, and he would tell you about that. The Legion had become established there just before the victory of the Communists. And it got a fairly good chance of making itself felt, with the result that a sort of landslide seemed to set in. That extraordinary figure, Archbishop Bury, reported to the Pope of the time that the situation in China was one of for intense optimism, that they seemed to be on the verge of an era of mass conversions. The problem had become one of instruction. The converts were there for the taking. Instruction had become the problem. And as that sober-spoken man said, optimism is to be the note. But there you have another of these extraordinary mischances that are permitted to happen, where every bit of that was swept away, where the Legion is persecuted unto death and annihilation. And all that, those bright prospects were wiped out. You can't fathom these things. But there are others now, things of very, very great importance, where whole countries are affected by the operations of the Legion. And then, of course, you have in the field of the introduction of things, you have a whole lot of new works introduced by the Legion. In fact, I'd say the biggest thing of all in the Legion is that it has proved the fact that the ordinary lay person, down to the very simplest person, is capable of apostleship. And that was never dreamt of in earlier times. And I myself would be daring enough to say that the Vatican Council #2 represents an act of faith in the Legion of Mary. They legislate on the mobilizing of the people of God. Well, that's a vain proposition without the Legion. You're not mobilizing the people of God by getting a whole lot of elect persons to write grand treatises about everything. That's not mobilizing the people of God. You have to be able to get the ordinary, even a literate person. That's the great success of the Legion. It's mobilization of those people of the world who would have been deemed unfit for apostleship. They are in our ranks. And here we are, now boasting of the princesses and other people whom we have in our ranks, but of the simple people of the world.
Yeah,
that's
really
our chief possession.
Really, really.
And that's what Pope Paul said. What I like, he says, most about the Legion of Mary is that it knows how to use the little people.
Good. Well, I think as a final question today, I'm going to ask you about the Legion as a saint maker.
As a
maker of saints. What would you say about the Legion as a maker of saints?
A justified name, I would say. Because it puts into the legionary mind, and along with putting it in, the capacity to understand it, the great Catholic doctrines. The doctrine of the mystical body, which St. Thomas Aquinas says is the central doctrine of the Church. The motherhood of Our Lady. The extraordinary sway of Our Lady over the Holy Spirit. You have to use an expression so extreme as that to denote the truth. These things, it teaches the rank and file of the Legion, these things. And these things are holy and sanctifying. And they make saints. And they make saints by the bushel. Now, and that is a truthful statement. By itself, the Legion could solve the whole question of the vocations for the Church.
Well, we certainly do thank you, Mr. Duff, for being with us today and giving us this beautiful interview and telling us, giving us information that will be profitable to the legionaries of the entire world. We thank you again.
Thank you, Al, for being so provocative in the form of your questions and being so patient with my actual replies.
Go tell the world about Mary. Go tell the world about Mother of Christ in the whole human race, and his life she will keep and will care for it deep in each heart. Go tell the world about Mary.
For a free catalog listing our selection of audio and video cassettes, books, and religious articles, or for information about our Catholic Video Club, call 1-800-221-1564 and ask for Jack Hoffbauer, or write Keep the Faith, Post Office Box 8621, 810 Belmont Avenue, North Haledon, New Jersey, 07508. Why not start your own TV apostolate? This program can be made available to you for broadcast on your local cable TV outlet. Call your city hall or town hall for information on the outlets servicing your community. For a small cost, Keep the Faith will ship you this program. Contact Jim Donovan at 201-423-5395 for details. That's Jim Donovan at 201-423-5395 for details.